So Cody, should they get rid of Derek Carr and restart, or do you think they should fire Josh McDaniels? And not saying like, oh, they're going to, but if you had to pick one, which one would you rather do?
So I've still been wrestling with this question all day from when you posed it, and I'm not confident with either one of them. I'm going to be honest. I mean, some part of me, my knee-jerk reaction is Josh McDaniels, but I also am trying to just see in the perspective. Okay, it's literally his first 8 games in the season. He hasn't coached in over 10 or whatever the number is. Maybe it's players, maybe whatever the case may be. And then my initial thought is for Derek Carr is he's been with this team for nearly 10 years now. Sometimes he does make questionable decisions with throwing the ball or turning it over. And then on the other hand, though, in those 9 years, we've had a lot of success out of spite, bad coaching, or whatever the case may be. But I think I would say if this was a different head coach, I would probably side with keeping the head coach over Derek Carr. But because it's Josh McDaniels, and I think, again, I'm going to go back to what we kind of talked about last week, which is, we all bought into the hype of Josh McDaniels. He's learned. He's coming from the Patriots organization. We have a Super Bowl caliber coach. And then come to find out, Josh McDaniels seems almost worse than he was when he was with Denver. And that's frustrating because, as what you pointed out last week, is a lot of these players, a lot of these veterans that were on a playoff team last year, majority of them are back. The core is back. And yet we're regressing we're now fighting for a number 3 draft pick, essentially. So, that's what is, for me, why I would say I would dump Josh McDaniels before Derek Carr. Now, I'm not trying to say that Derek Carr is a savior for the Raiders. I'm not trying to say that I will choose him over any other quarterback. Truth be told, if it was even a slight upgrade at quarterback, like we had a discussion last year or earlier this year in the offseason when there was rumors that Aaron Rodgers was going to leave. Now, if you ask me, would you think about getting rid of Aaron Rodgers for Derek Carr? Some part of me would say, yeah, because he's got the talent and, he's mobile and in my opinion, he throws the ball a little bit better than Derek Carr. And I feel like he would work really well with our weapons. But that doesn't mean that I don't like Derek Carr. It just means that, he's been there for a while and, Aaron Rodgers is a significant upgrade as just the example. But I would still keep Derek Carr because out of the 9 years or nearly 10 years he's been with the Raiders organization, out of all the regimes he's gone through, the coaching, the OCs, all that stuff, he still remained a consistent player within the locker room to where he has not lost that leadership. Guys come to play for him all the time, past and present. Teammates are always fighting by his side to play for him and play with him, which I think speaks to that. And also, too, it takes a certain coach to turn a player like Derek Carr to where he is now saying cryptic messages at the press conference post-game. Because I remember one of the first seasons or two with John Gruden, I was pointing this out, that Derek Carr does not look like he likes playing. He's more so arguing with John Gruden, and they're butting heads. Eventually, though, sick to say, but they seem to be working it out. Year 4 or 5 of John Gruden's time there. And, the team looked pretty good. But I would say there's something of a coach that has to push Derek Carr to the point to where he's not even giving a vote of confidence at the press conference about his head coach and alluding to that he wants to say more about the situation. Obviously, he's a professional, so he won't. But in this scenario between the two, I would get rid of Josh McDaniels before Derek Carr for the reasons I've stated. I think that Josh McDaniels is probably a really good OC, maybe not that great of a head coach as what we're seeing, but I think that there is something to say about Derek Carr being a consistent leader in the locker room and never losing teammates, and not a teammate ever bad-mouthing or saying like they didn't like playing for him, or they don't always want to play for him because he's a hell of a teammate. He even did his best to be open-minded about Antonio Brown when we traded for him, and a bevy of other players. Who Justin Tucker speaks very highly of Derek Carr. James Jones speaks very highly of Derek Carr. So he's got numerous former and present players that always play for him. And yet Josh McDaniels looks like he's already losing the locker room in his first season. So that's why I would keep Derek Carr.
Yeah, I'd say fire McDaniels. If I'm not even saying what if, I'm saying do it. I know. Listen, it's what Colin Cowherd has been saying. Like, if you're an owner or even just a person who works in an everyday life, like not in this high powered sports world, if you double down on a mistake, it doesn't make it better. It makes you look even worse. And I feel like if you're Mark Davis, the only reason I think McDaniels is going to end the year is because I think Mark Davis is like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? I can't fire another coach mid-year, back-to-back years. I can't do it. I really think that's what he's thinking. So I think his thought is, let's just let him finish out the year, see how the year ends, and then we'll make that decision. So yes, of course, he's coming out and saying no. He's our coach. He's our head coach. All these reports. But I saw a tweet by Raider Cody, who I follow on Twitter, and he really put out. I thought it was spot on. It was a reporter that put, Mark Davis is still reiterating that, Josh McDaniels is our head coach of the future, blah, blah, blah. And Raider Cody just put, I wish we had a head coach where this wasn't a story, where this wasn't had to be said. And it's so mind-blowing. Like, that's crazy that we have a coach, and it seems like every week, no, Josh McDaniels is our head coach. Nope, Josh McDaniels is our head coach. I wish we had a coach where it was like, nope, so and so is ready to go for this week. Like instead of talking about the head coach, and that's where it gets bad. That's where it gets bad. I mean, for God's sakes, at the end of the year, we were talking about maybe Rich Bisaccia should be the head coach. And now we're talking about Josh McDaniels being fired right away. Like, to me, that's not a coincidence. That's not like, oh, he's just having a bad time. Because Rich Bisaccia had a worse Raider team, and that team went to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And now McDaniels has the best receiver in the game, has arguably a top 3 tight end, has one of the best slot receivers, best route runners in the league in Hunter Renfrow. You have right now a top 5 running back. And yes, your defense is bad, but they still did it last year. So I'm not understanding what the issue is here, other than, Derek Carr has regressed. Darren Waller never plays. Renfrow has regressed. Adams has been great. Jacobs has been great, but Chandler Jones has regressed almost horribly. And they, for some reason, they're all regressing. The offensive line regressed. The defensive line regressed. The linebackers have regressed. The whole defensive back unit has regressed. That, to me, is coaching, and that's why I would fire McDaniels. I like Derek Carr. It's no surprise here. I'm with you. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they went after another quarterback. I was listening to Colin Cowherd this morning, and he was saying, sometimes relationships run its course. And I think Carr may have had his relationship run its course with the Raiders, which is sad because he had Trent Dilfer on there, he said, I don't think anyone wants to be a Raider more than Derek Carr.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, maybe I'm weird, but I want guys like that on my team. I want guys to want to win for the Raiders. That's why Raider Nation loves Max Crosby, because he got a tattoo of the Raiders on his arm. Like, he's a Raider. Like, that's what he wants to do. He wants to win. Derek Carr is that same way. So to me, it blows my mind that the whole Raider Nation is like, oh, he's terrible. He's the worst. First of all, he's not terrible. I really still believe that he is a top 10 quarterback. Is he playing like that right now? No. But I do feel in my heart at least number 10 on that list of the quarterbacks. I would still stick with Derek Carr because I think he's the reason Devontae Adams was there. He's the reason that Amari Cooper wanted to stay a Raider, and we got rid of him. He's the reason that Khalil Mack was super upset at the Raiders for letting him go, because Khalil Mack wanted to play with Derek Carr and wanted to win with Derek Carr, and they still talk about it. I mean, I don't think it's weird that all these players, James Jones has come out and said Derek Carr is a wonderful guy, love playing with him. Jordy Nelson even came out and said that he loved playing. Hunter Renfrow wanted to play with him. He took all that. He took some money. Derek Carr even said, "I'm going to take less, so you sign Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow." And what did they do? They signed Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. Those guys stayed because of Carr, not because of McDaniels, because of Carr. Get rid of McDaniels. Don't double down on a mistake. Get rid of him. Kick him out of the building. Go after someone who you actually believe, not who, hey, he had 10 years as an offensive coordinator. He learned from his mistakes. No, we're not doing this anymore. Go after a guy who's been established. Go after a guy like an Eric Bieniemy, a guy who's been successful his whole career in Kansas City. And it's amazing that he doesn't have a head coaching job right now. That's who you and I wanted last year. We were saying, go after Bieniemy. That would make so much sense. And they didn't. Now's your chance. You got another chance. I would be okay with Jim Harbaugh. Sean Payton would be at the top of my list. I mean, and you look at Sean Payton, he talks about the Raiders like this team should be like Super Bowl bound, because he's probably drawing up plays like, I would have Carr do this, and he is.
Yeah.
And so this is not an unattractive job. This is a really attractive job. So if you're Mark Davis, cut your losses and go after someone who's going to be successful at the head coaching and who has done it before, not another Josh McDaniels who basically was a project and it's not working out.